Hello everybody, I'm Jill Grimshaw. I'm the course manager for the certificate course, and this is a quick recap of Module A. I'm going to try and fit it into 10 minutes, but you can take a bit longer by stopping the video or to read the slides or make a note of something, okay? So, Module A covers 3 topic areas, and the first one is about assessment itself, and we talked about what the qualities of good assessment are. And we started with this quotation from the Qualifications and Curriculum Authority, the QCA. And this is what it says in its code of practice. If you'd just like to take a minute to read this slide, press pause while you do so. So as you can see, we've highlighted some words here that are key words to describe high quality assessment. So before we go on to the next slide, I want you to look at this quotation and think about some words which you would use to describe high quality assessment. These are the 5 areas that we looked at in Module A as features of good assessment. You can say that validity is perhaps the most important and indeed the overarching quality of good assessment. If a test isn't valid, it simply is not doing its job. Nowadays we think of validity as a unitary concept, but as assessment professionals we may want to unpack it a little. Look at these different aspects of validity. If you had to explain each one of these, could you do that? Just press pause and make a note before you go on. Okay, I'm going to skim through these very briefly. What we assess can be looked at in 2 ways, content related and construct related. Now, in terms of content, a test must cover a sufficient or representative sample of the course or the curriculum to be a valid test. Secondly, the assessment will be addressing a particular construct that we believe we're assessing. For example, an ability to read or knowledge of geography. So we need to demonstrate that this is what our assessments are doing and that they're not assessing something else like general knowledge, or that other things are not getting in the way of assessing this construct. Then we have 2 further ways to demonstrate the validity of our test. It can be compared to other assessments that focus on similar criteria, and the extent to which they tell the same story will tell us something about their concurrent validity. So we'll compare assessments in the same field. And similarly, we can look at a test's predictive validity. Can we show that the test predicts future performance? The final aspect of validity, which we should be aware of, is consequences of use. How are the results going to be used, and how do they impact on the candidate and other test users? Is the test a motivating influence or a straitjacket? Now, moving on to the other qualities of good assessment. Here we've got reliability. On this slide you can see 2 quotes that describe reliability, and the key words are, in the first one, accurate, and in the second one, consistently. So if an assessment is reliable, it should be accurate and it should measure consistently. Now, given this unified definition of validity which we're using, you can see that reliability is a part of validity. It's not just another aspect of the test. It's actually part of validity. If the results of the test can't be relied on, we're less likely to be able to make well-founded inferences. Fairness and lack of bias are also seen as validity issues. If a geography test is biased, let's say, against students who've never travelled abroad, it will not be a valid test of the student's geographical ability or knowledge. In fact, it might be an assessment of their parents' earning power or their willingness to take their children on holidays overseas. The other two qualities we focused on are impact and practicality, which again can be seen as aspects of validity. Impact is very much associated with the consequences of use, what effect using an assessment has on the candidate, the curriculum, the classroom, etc. Practicality or manageability sounds rather mundane, but it's a key factor in test design. How feasible is it to produce and administer an assessment, which again can affect its validity? So, in summary, this was what we covered in the first topic. Successful examinations are those which are valid, reliable, fair, they should be positive in their impact, and they should be practical to develop, deliver and administer. Okay, so in topic 2 was standards, and we looked at reliability and also at comparability as part of this. How far an assessment maintains its standard over time and from version to version. We then considered 2 key ways of assessing a candidate, using norm or criterion referencing. So I want you now to pause the video and make a note of the differences between these 2 ways of assessing and any examples you can think of when you might want to use them. Here you can see the 2 types of assessment, and where norm referencing is useful to select the best, whereas criterion referencing is useful to set the standard against which performance is judged. Also within standards we touched on the use of professional judgment and the use of statistical evidence in assessment. The public demands that assessment is as reliable and free from error as possible, but at the same time is less and less trusting of awarding bodies. So how far can awarding bodies deliver what is expected of them? Okay, the final topic in Module A was modes and purposes. And here we're looking at the 2 key purposes for assessment. Formative assessment, where the focus is on learning, and summative assessment, where the focus is on assessment. Summative assessment means that you are using your judgment for various purposes to assess somebody's learning. In formative assessment, however, the use of the assessment is to assist the learning. That's the point. It must affect the planning of the course and it must give feedback to the learner. Of course, the issues arise when assessment results are used for a variety of purposes, possibly conflicting ones. In theory, the purpose is part of the design, but often other uses can be made of assessment results for various reasons, social, political, as well as educational. So the purpose of assessment is a key aspect of good assessment design. Finally, we discussed the different modes of assessment and how the principles are borne out here. We looked at self-assessment, peer assessment, other kinds of practical assessment. And we also discussed the advantages of technology assisting assessment through computer-based assessment, something which will feature much more heavily in Module B. So that's a quick summary to prepare you for Module B and the practice of assessment. Obviously we'll refer back to these principles repeatedly, so there's no danger you'll forget about them. Thank you.